Welcome to Quays News, I'm Theo Chicomba.
Hello, I'm Martina Moscariello. On today's show,
The anger as bus cuts announced across Manchester.
cutting into the countryside, the £580 million plan to cut traffic that some residents want to put the brake on.
And learning to swim like the fishes in Aston's new Mermaid Academy. Hello and welcome to Quays News. Our top story today, Article 50 has been triggered. The 6-page letter signed by Theresa May today officially marks the beginning of the 2-year negotiations between the UK and the EU.
The Prime Minister said she is determined to get the right deal for everyone in Britain, including EU nationals who have made this country their home. Our reporter Salford has more.
Thanks guys. Well, 9 months ago, protesters planned to fill Albert Square here with protests against the EU referendum result. Those protests did not go ahead, but Brexit certainly has. Today, Theresa May has triggered Article 50 in a letter to EU Council President Donald Tusk. But what does that actually mean? Well, it's the start of a 2-year divorce period between the UK and the EU. During that time, the UK is still part of the EU, but we will not get to vote on important EU matters. It gives us time to set out the Great Repeal Bill, which is expected to give ministers the power to move EU legislative acts into UK law. And the letter will set out the tone of negotiations to set out the key facts of what needs to be discussed, the freedom of movement, the payments to Brussels, the all-important question of what happens to EU citizens in the UK and UK citizens in the EU. Theresa May have triggered Article 50 today, but it'll be a long time before any targets are hit.
I see no reason why the EU member states would not protect their interests as strongly as the UK does. It is, after all, normal practice in international politics for states to pursue their interests. How strongly the UK or the EU will pursue their interests, well, I would expect that to be very strongly. States are known for being pretty ruthless in their pursuit of national interests. Again, this is absolutely normal and what should be expected to happen.
The proposition for the A6-M60 bypass in Stockport is moving through the planning stages, but has already caused controversy as it will cut through Stockport's green belt. Salford spoke to residents and Councillor Lewis Booth to see how the news has been received.
The proposal of an A6-M60 bypass has divided Stockport. It would see £580 million spent on a 4.5-mile dual carriageway extension of the A6 to Manchester Airport. The idea has sparked much debate, leading to 2 petitions, one to stop the bypass being built, the other to ensure it does.
It would not serve the purpose for which it is being sold to the people of Stockport to relieve their problems. On the contrary, they would find, and we would have a short life road and a permanent damage to this beautiful countryside here. This is no magic wand, and on the contrary, it could be making the situation worse in Stockport in the long term and a disaster for Stockport.
From my perspective as a councillor, the majority of customers and residents that I talk to, they tell me very clearly that, we really have got to do something about the traffic in the area. The only project that's going to make a significant dent is complete the bypass. I get the displeasure at building over and through some particularly beautiful parts of the borough. So I will also counter that the bypass has been on the books since, I think, 1932. So before quite a lot of the current Greenbelt legislation was ever drafted. I'd say there's a certain case for considering it as a slightly more special case.
Bypass is quite useful, although having driven for a long time, the more bypasses and motorways you have, the more traffic you generate. So I really don't know.
The traffic that the bypass is going to supposedly get to the motorway quicker isn't going to go anywhere. It's just going to be stood, and that is just standing traffic polluting the area. and that's my big concern.
The bypass proposal has just passed its first step in the feasibility study. But what happens next? The second part of the feasibility study has not yet been announced, but Stockport Council could vote to move it into the next stage of development within the next few months. And if approved, where I'm standing right now will be right next to the bypass.
Now, according to a study by the Asphalt Industry Alliance, some UK roads have been so neglected that they've been seen by the local authorities over 80 years. Charles Creasy has this report.
Well, we're here in Salford, and as you can see, the roads are quite good. But nationally, that's not the case. New research by the Asphalt Industry Alliance has revealed that 1 in 5 roads across England are not up to scratch. This raises questions about the possibility of some even being forced to close by 2021. Now, nationally, this means we have to ask ourselves a couple of questions. Perhaps have we put too much emphasis on national infrastructure at the expense of local roads? Well, 2 things are for certain. The first thing is that councils across England have a £12 billion repair bill. The second is that roads are deteriorating far quicker than we can possibly repair them. All right, that's all from me. Back to you in the studio, guys.
In April, bus operator First will see 12 bus services axed. These will cause route changes and potentially longer journeys to customers. Customers have been openly unhappy with these changes online.
Phil Medlicott, First Manchester's managing director, said, "I'd like to reassure customers that the majority of changes are made to improve the service reliability."
Now, it's Autism Awareness Week, and our reporter Joanna Hickson went to meet a mother who is doing things a little differently.
Meet Charlie Fletcher. He's 6 years old and has autism.
Charlie, look at Mama. Look in. Jump. Nice!
When did you first realise that Charlie wasn't developing in the way that you would expect?
Charlie was around 15 months old, and up until that point he had hit his walking milestones early, crawling milestones early, so we just assumed that everything else was going to be fine. At around about 15 months, we noticed that he had stopped making eye contact with us, he'd stopped smiling, he'd stopped responding to his name. He just seemed to lock himself in his own world, really. And it was actually quite frightening to see the contrast from what he was like before to then see this regression happening in front of our eyes. Even when we got the referral to see a paediatrician, for Charlie to see one, the waiting list was at 12 months. So that's at the point where I said, I can't sit and wait for 12 months, I've got to do something else.
Beth and her husband Nick decided to follow the home-based Sunrise programme. It is a parent-directed, relationship-based play therapy.
We have a specialised room in our house, and all it is really is focused on what Charlie likes to do, and we play games around the things that he likes. We speak to him as if he understands everything that we're telling him, which is a really important part of it. And we've seen massive leaps in his progress. I didn't like the idea of sending him to school when he couldn't communicate with me. I also knew he had issues sensory-wise with noise and things like that. I did look at some special schools and I looked at some regular schools, and I couldn't find anything that I felt was as powerful as the programme that we do with Charlie. And I think purely because the programme we do is centred on loving him for who he is and not actually trying to change him, but just trying to help him adapt to the social world around him. And there's something quite nice and kind about that, I think, in comparison to putting him in a situation that he would have been uncomfortable with.
The consensus within the medical community is that there is no cure for autism. But Beth believes no harm can come from having hope that her child can go on to live a normal life. Joanna Hickson, Quays News.
Now, in the world of sports, Manchester is getting a third professional football club. Salford City announced they'll be going full-time for the season in their bid to achieve English Football League status.
The club, owned by ex-Man United stars known as the Class of '92, have won back-to-back promotions since the highly publicised takeover. Managers Anthony Johnson and Bernard Morley will give up their day jobs for a full-time contract starting from April 1st.
something that we've been working towards for 8 years. You know, I'm a Class 1 wagon driver, and I've worked for myself over the last few years, but I've been driving a bin wagon. So, you know, I have a crew with me who went to people's bins, and I drive the wagon. I didn't want to be there. You know, it's the reason I work for myself, same with Bernie, is because it tied around football. So even with us being semi-pro part-time, it tied in with what we were doing. So I was working 3 or 4 days a week. They might miss me, but I won't be missing a job, I'll tell you that.
Now, Carnage is a new mockumentary written and directed by Simon Amstell. Set in 2067, the film takes a look at what the world without meat eaters would look like and deals with some of the majority moral issues around what the film calls carnism. Now, joining us here is to talk about it is Ed Tyler. First, here's the clip.
Animals. Must we really stop eating them now, or can I have one last burger?
What's happened to our country? Who's taken the chicken nuggets?
Did you kill her? I'm really hungry.
It's still difficult to say it out loud. I ate animals.
Do you eat this food because you think your face doesn't look smug enough?
We are not vegans. They are carnists.
Why would anyone eat a baby? It's just a little baby.
Carnage, a film by Simon Amstell. Available now exclusively on BBC iPlayer.
So joining us here is Ed Tyler. Now, what do you make of the film Carnage?
So what I think Carnage is, it's a brilliant satire, really, because the best satires, in my opinion, are those which offend everyone, and therefore by offending everyone, you're basically offending no one. And I think that's what Carnage does really well. As a meat eater, I found it was having a go at me for, you know, my beliefs and what I do, and then I think they're also making fun of vegans as well. I know vegans who have really enjoyed it, and I think what's so great about it is that it's funny while at the same time being really informative, and actually gave me like a lot of knowledge on issues which I didn't know about.
Okay, so would you say, well, people like me are a bit alienated with the movement of veganism. Would you say this is would you say the direction in the right?
Yeah.
In the right way, sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it is, because even in the film they make fun of how the veganism movement has been and what they've done and like the representation that they've had in the media, and it goes on to create a world where veganism is all there is, and you know, in the film, the carnists, as they're called, the meat eaters, who lived while people ate meat, they feel so guilty about it. They need to have counselling and therapy, and that's just, you know, a weird concept to have to deal with, but one that really resonates with you.
Okay, now obviously for meat lovers, do you think this offers a way out for those who care about the world?
Yeah, I think so. It really focuses on like key issues. It talks about how climate change, flooding, mad cow disease, foot and mouth disease, all these things have been directly affected by people eating meat.
Thank you. Well, that's the film that we have. Now, obviously, moving on further, we have our reporter Sophie Chadwick, who went to investigate a new mermaid swimming pool classes in Ashton. Is this what it really feels like to be making the waves?
Something magical is happening at Ashton and Lyne Swimming Pool today, as for the first time ever, sharks and mermaids have taken over the venue.
It's open day for Splash Mermaid Academy, the first of its kind in Greater Manchester, and the result of one mum's dream to create an opportunity for her mermaid-obsessed daughter to swim at home in a monofin. Here at the pool, children have been learning to swim in their tails under the watchful eye of swimming teachers, including course creator Claire Roberts. I spoke to Claire to find out how Ashton Swimming Pool's latest edition had been received.
I thought it might be popular, being the only mermaid academy in Manchester. I never expected it to be like it's been. Things are just going bigger and bigger and bigger. We do the mermaid experiences for the little ones. That's where they come along and they have a tryout, see what it's like. We also do the mermaid courses, where they come for a 6-week block course and they learn skills and they learn towards badges. They do the bronze, silver and gold ASA badges. We do some safety work with them, and we do some life-saving skills, also learning how to swim properly in a monofin. And we also have the free mermaid swimmers that you've seen today, which is the older ones where they come and they have a specialised session with a lifeguard and a qualified teacher in the water with them.
The mermaids and sharks will be able to play games, take part in races and get exercise while having fun, showing why for parents across Manchester, the project has made a huge splash. Sophie Chadwick for Quays News.
That's all from Now Today. You can read the latest news online at quaysnews.net.
Or you can follow us on Twitter at Quays News.
Goodbye.